So today we're going to have a little bit of fun, I hope. This competition is named Sharks in Space after the Shark Tank television show. So it's going to be fairly similar in its format. Each competitor is going to give a 7-minute presentation, and then that's going to be followed by 7 minutes of Q&A from the judges, who have been instructed to ask really tough questions. I'm looking at you guys. So it should be a lot of fun. And then I'm going to whisk the judges away after the presentations are finished, and we'll determine who the winner is, and we'll come back later and make that announcement to you guys. So hopefully you guys can follow along. I appreciate you guys maybe voting yourselves who you think the best business plan competitor is. And if you are an accredited investor, these folks are all looking for dollars right now. So come up and talk to them afterwards if you're interested. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask the judges to come out on stage and take their seats. They'll each do a quick introduction to who they are and why they're qualified to be judging this competition. And then we'll get the competitors out here to compete.
Hi, my name's E-Rock Christopher. I am the CEO of BizFamous Media Group. We help organizations with media, marketing, and money. And one of our most recent investments is into a fintech platform called Peach Score. They're the FICO score of startups. So if you are looking to raise capital, go check out that platform. And looking forward to being a part of this. And I guess part of the reason that I was invited to be a part of this is because some of my business partners and mentors are actual sharks from the television show that she referenced.
Great. Thank you very much, Megan, for the invite to participate today. I'm Rob Desborough. I'm one of the managing partners at Seraphim Space Fund. At Seraphim, we're one of the world's leading investors in space tech. We launched the first VC fund focused on space tech in 2016. We floated our fund on the main market of the London Stock Exchange in July of last year. We've invested $250 million in the last 12 months, and we invest from pre-seed all the way through to pre-IPO, and we had successfully $3 billion IPOs last year.
Awesome. My name is Jonathan Lacoste. I run a venture capital fund called Space VC. We're based here in Austin, Texas, and we invest in pre-seed and seed stage space companies.
Fantastic. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started with our first competitor. I'm going to leave this microphone with you guys so you can do your Q&A.
So how would we send 1 billion people to the stars? It's going to involve DNA seed banks. I'm Ben Haldeman, founder and CEO of LifeShip. I worked on instruments to go to Mars to look for life on Mars while at grad school at Berkeley. I spent 8 years building a big network of telescopes that have found dozens of new planets. And then I worked on hundreds of satellites to image the whole Earth every day at Planet. At Planet, I went on to strategy teams and business teams and buying rockets. After Planet, I took a bit of a break. I got my yoga teacher training certificate. I did a 10-day meditation retreat, and I spent a lot of time in the rainforest. And on one of these trips to the rainforest, I felt connected to all of life on Earth. And I got a transmission of the intelligence of Gaia and the intelligence of our planet. And I was given the mission to spread the seeds of Earth to the stars. So people lack an inspirational view of the future. People are searching for purpose. People have had these big questions of who am I, why am I here, and where am I going since before language. LifeShip uses space and genomics to connect people to their biggest version of themselves and to spread life in the universe. Our big mission is to do this, to assemble the genetic record of Earth to send to the stars. For the first time ever, we've created a consumer product where people can be part of a space mission. Over 3,000 people have done this. You add your DNA, you add your life story of yourself, It goes to the moon. We've already sent 2 to the International Space Station. Who wants to go to the moon? Anyone? Yeah? Everyone else, go to lifeship.com. You can buy it today. So we've already sent 2,000 people to the International Space Station. We signed a Space Act agreement with NASA for 4 missions. We've been on 2 crewed missions with SpaceX, and we're at 2 contracts to the moon. And we have an engaged community. This is one of our community launches, watching a SpaceX rocket. So people really feel this visceral connection of a real piece of themselves going to space. And many people have dreamed of being part of a space mission all their lives. We process the DNA in a lab. All the DNA goes in a tiny capsule, so it's very scalable. And then we're on 2 different moon landers. This is Firefly we're on. And really, billions of people want to go to space. And people try to work on a satellite all their lives to touch something going on to space. People dream of being an astronaut. And we're creating a way for people to experience this in a small way. Our model is get 1 million people to the moon, then to Mars. We have $100 kits, so that's $100 million in revenue. And then we turn the community into a subscription service where you go on rocket launches every few months. We have a freemium product that we're developing to get millions of people in. 11 million people had sent their name to Mars, and we have a more compelling product than that. Working on ad campaigns, we've got close to break even on ads and really need to scale it. And then there's Web3 and decentralized technology woven all through this. You can sponsor the elephants on the Noah's Ark to the stars. There's a DAO for a community movement to spread life in the universe. The big vision is that we're starting with essentially a time capsule of you. It's your DNA, your story, your photos. And then we start to add self-reflection and voice memos for you to inquire on who am I and why am I here and other big questions in the universe. And that eventually is leading to us uploading your consciousness and then also us reading your DNA over time and seeing how you're growing and evolving as a human. So the big vision is that we're helping people self-actualize and grow both from DNA and this record of you. I've been full-time for a couple years, have a team of contributors that are ready to dive in more. I'm raising a quick $500K pre-seed to help scale marketing, grow the community, get this out there at a big scale. Some of this is already committed, so find me if you can help. And then also looking to get this in other communities. So if you have a space community that we can engage with actual missions to space, then let me know.
Great, thank you very much for your presentation, Ben. I love your sense of purpose. I think that's fantastic. My sense of purpose is to make returns for my investors. I don't understand how I would make a return if I invested into your company. Please tell me.
Well, we have a consumer product that we sell for $100. We're aiming to get the customer acquisition costs down to $40 to $50 for that. The goal is it's a mass-based movement to get millions of people, and then a subscription service that people subscribe. And then there's tokens and other ways that we engage our community as well. So it's a direct-to-consumer product.
And have you thought about the exit for the opportunity for an investor?
This is mission-driven. There are exit opportunities through Web3 and crypto, and then there's bigger paths here towards what we do, which could be a SPAC or whatever. Yeah.
So just to make sure, because I'm not yet in the space ecosystem. So the premise is $100, you're sending me a DNA test kit, almost like a 23andMe opportunity. Yeah. I'm sending you my DNA. Yeah. You're sending it to the moon. Yeah. Like, does it go to the moon, or is it going to go into like a low Earth orbit, and now it made it into space?
Your physical DNA, both. Your physical DNA goes to the International Space Station, and another set goes to the moon.
And my DNA stays there forever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not the space station. That one gets destroyed eventually.
Okay. So a small part of me dies.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I won't continue on that front. So you have sold how many of these kits? 2,000?
3,000.
3,000 at a $100 price point. And what's your cost of client acquisition currently?
Right now, the kits cost $15, and then we've gotten it at best to like $100 customer acquisition, so we've lost money on sales. But this has been a website I built and like Facebook ads that I've run, and so we need to bring on a marketer and really, we need videos and explainer videos, and then we can get our customer acquisition cost cut in half. Yeah.
Yeah, to echo what Rob said, really love the vision and kind of the mission-driven essence of the company. You can feel it just by how you speak and present. I'm curious, if you get 1 million people to give you their DNA and you're bringing that to the moon, that kind of opens up a lot of tangential business opportunities. Have you thought about what else beyond DNA to the moon? Like, what are some of those crazy ideas or tangential product roadmap components you and the team have thought about?
Yep, exactly. So this gets us into genomics. We are the forever record of you. And so we are the bank of your DNA. We empower you and encrypt your DNA so only you have access to it. And then we help you learn about yourself from your DNA. It's kind of like DNA kind of like 23andMe for your future. Like, where are you going? And so there's lots we can help you learn about yourself from your DNA, and then we can secure it and empower you to what else do you want your DNA used for.
And what do you find is the common throughput of your early customers, the first 3,000, or how you get to 1 million? Like, what's the motivation for them? Is it truly to have DNA on the moon, or like what do you hear from those testimonials?
Good question. So many people give it as a gift, and we hear people saying, this is the most memorable gift I've ever gotten, or this is like the most unique thing I've ever gotten in my life. Many people, maybe child of Apollo, or like, I always loved space, I always wanted to be part of it, my dad works on rockets, like I want to be part of it. And then we have kits for dogs' DNA also. So there's many people who are like, oh, the family of 5 and a dog, we're going to look up at the moon the rest of our life and know that we're like always together.
So when it comes to the, well, first of all, let me ask, what's the valuation of the company you're asking for $500,000 at what valuation?
Yeah, 10 million.
So basically you're saying that with, what is it, $20,000 worth of sales, that you're thinking that the company's worth $10 million?
200,000.
200,000, yes, that's what I said, is worth $10 million. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then let's say that you guys figure out the CAC and you're able to get the cost of acquisition down and you're able to do this with $1 million. How do you ensure supply chain? Like, how do you ensure that the deliverable is there? Because that's a concept that you currently don't have control with, correct? Like, like as an example, do you have contracts to be able to ensure that the DNA gets to the moon? And then this leads to another question, which is, how do I actually know it made it to the moon and it's not sitting in a warehouse somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah, we can scale to 1 million people quickly. Everything's done through a fulfillment center. The kits are cardboard and printouts and badges and stickers and DNA swab. We can scale up how we process the DNA. That's all massively scalable. And then we're on 4 upcoming rockets. So we have space missions. We have a tiny capsule we can get on other space missions very easily. Yeah, and then how do we prove it? We'll provide images of it on the moon lander, and then the moon lander on the rocket, and then the rocket, you watch it live with the community, and that's exciting. I've had my DNA on probably 30 rockets now, and it's still exciting to know a piece of me is going up to space. And then you track it to the moon, and you see it landing on the moon. So as long as you believe the moon's out there and it's not flat, then I think we'll provide enough to show you that it actually got there. Yeah.
How do you move this from a novelty purchase to a sustainable monetization strategy?
Yeah, so that's about making a transformational experience about this. Like, it's really about you putting your heart and intention into who am I and why am I here and what's my purpose, and this is my forever legacy and record, and this will live on in the galaxy. And then it's about us being on cool space missions and engaging community and getting people excited about it. Yeah.
Ben?
Okay. Lifeship.com, get your kits.
I'm John Quinn. I'm here to share with you about Exos Aerospace and how Exos is making space available. It's not as important as what Exos Aerospace can do for you and your family, and that's the journey I'm about to take you on. So everybody knows there's probably about 150 to 200 companies out there right now trying to do launch, right? Go orbital. There are 11 companies currently in the United States that have an FAA launch license. Of those 11 companies, there are 3 companies that have a reusable rocket license. You probably can guess 2 of them real quick. Exos Aerospace is that 3rd company in the mix. So, can we have the slides? All right, thank you. So Exos is one of 3 companies in the United States currently flying under an FAA launch license for reusable rockets. I really wanted the picture there, so hopefully. Okay, now back one, forward one, there we are. Okay, so beyond reusability, there's a company that's made some really great advances to solve some of the problems in space. Virgin Orbit, Northrop Grumman Orbital ATK, I believe, have led the pack because they have gone to the air. Now, many of you probably flew in. How many people flew in today? Okay, how would you like to circle for a couple hours because we've got launches going every day and they interrupt airspace? Well, these 2 companies have solved that problem, but they've done it with a dedicated vehicle. So that adds to the cost. And the whole idea in space right now is let's bring the cost down, let's make it attainable for everyone. Well, that's where Exos Aerospace comes in because we're combining the technologies of these 2 companies standing on their shoulders and saying now it's time to take commercial airlines to launch rockets. So we take a few 777s that are flying commercial payloads on a regular basis, getting to anywhere in the world that you need to go, paying the way, and then you put a rocket under it and you do launch campaigns. So once a month, once every 3 months, we stop and we do a dozen launches, back-to-back launches from that orbital platform. It doesn't affect you guys flying around the country. And guess what? It gets away from the populated areas where we have so many problems today. So Exos has kind of 3 steps in our process. The first was a suborbital reusable launch vehicle. We've launched the first vehicle 4 times. And we have a little different mission than the other 2 companies that I mentioned, well, didn't mention, but SpaceX is one of them, right? Doing phenomenal things, but they have a different mission. What are they doing? They're going for Mars. Absolutely great to get off planet. Jeff Bezos, if I were to sum up his mission, not to speak for him, he wants to take industry off of the planet because it does bad things to our environment, right? Our mission's a little bit different. I've got 3,000 experiments that we paid millions of dollars, billions of dollars for on the International Space Station to do. Hundreds of those were successful. Today, I'd like you to look into the impact of just one. And I'm going to relate a little bit to my personal experience. Dr. Abba Zubair put mesenchymal stem cells on the International Space Station. Within a couple of weeks, not only did he have stem cell activation, but he also had over 100% growth of these stem cells. That program led a Mayo Clinic, 100-person clinical trial that had phenomenal results at taking away the problem from stroke and some of the symptoms that people have after stroke. Now, how many people know someone who has had a stroke and has lost probably the most common, half of your body you have no control over? And it gets personal. For Dr. Abba Zubair, he lost one of his parents to stroke. In the time I've been up here so far, there have been 3 people that have had strokes across the world, okay? Hundreds of thousands per year. What they found in those clinical trials is that the mesenchymal cells that have been activated in space, as we can't do on Earth, takes months and months, we can do in weeks. So that's our mission. And why is it important to me? Because my dad's not here today because he's at an assisted living facility up in Dallas because he's had several strokes. So it gets a little personal. So different missions. We do have a couple other segments. Our step 2 is hypersonics. And we developed a rocket for the US Air Force that would quadruple the capacity of our first rocket. And we went from design to manufacturing and that vehicle flying, hovering, in a year. How many people did it take? Guess from the audience. Design, build a rocket, and take it to a hovering flight. Anyone want to guess? 6 people. Okay, small teams, but thank you for that. Bezos may have 8,000, and Elon Musk may have 10,000, but we're a small team, okay? With that, we believe there'll be tertiary markets that come off from what we're developing, particularly hydrogen tanks and other technologies that we develop for spaceflight that we believe will lead into our profitability far into the future. Small team, our leader and president, David Mitchell, 4th generation oil man, pastor, has done businesses, exits, raised about $8 million for Exos for the development of our first 3 rockets, and a phenomenal team that has built hundreds of rockets and dozens of flying vehicles. Probably the most notorious one was the Morpheus lunar lander that NASA flew for many years after acquiring it from our team. So where are we? We've invested about $20 million to date. We have a Series A that we elected about 3 months ago to go through Dubai for a debt funding deal. And we're wondering if we're ever going to get through KYC, AML, CFIUS, and all the regulations to get that fund. So we're actually looking at our Plan B partner, who is a satellite manufacturer that's bringing about $410 million worth of launch that they need, who was going to do an equity debt deal, and we may be moving to that. So to give us time, we've commenced a private offering round of a couple $1 million. 750K is already closed, and we're trying to close out the rest of that round to buy us some more runway to get through to our commercial operations and going orbital. And with that, I'll open to questions.
Thank you. Keen to understand, what are your milestones you need to get to raise that Series A round? What is it the investors are looking for?
Oh, wow. A whole year of pawing through absolutely everything from our IP. And we've actually got a contract for the Series A funding. But the biggest milestone is State Department approvals and just getting through the political environment that's in the world right now, if funding can actually come through. As I understand it, 2 of the investors are cleared. There is a 3rd investor that is a challenge right now, and that's why we're looking at alternate options.
So launch investment is one of the fastest decreasing areas of VC investment at the moment. What is the differentiated proposition that you have that is compelling to these investors?
Yeah, I don't actually consider us a launch company. I believe that our ancillary products, particularly, if I just named one, hydrogen tanks. It's for the green economy. It's all over the world. That's why we branched out into Italy, was to develop the hydrogen tank technologies that we use on our rockets for commercial service. And we actually have a license to sell those tanks as a commercial product, which is a huge thing because normally space hardware is ITAR restricted. We have a green solution of our proprietary formula that is approved for transportation.
So you're raising $310 million for this round. What is the exit opportunity looking like for investors, and what kind of multiple are you looking for?
Yeah, so right now we're predicting a multiple in 5 to 7 years in the 10 to 25x, and we believe that will actually happen through acquisition.
And who is likely to acquire you at that kind of valuation?
Probably Lockheed Martin, because we currently work the hypersonic reusable launch vehicle segment with Lockheed Martin. And have had several of those conversations, but in the very early stages.
And what are the contracts looking like for that exit at that point?
I'm not sure that it would be a contract as such for the
Well, what are
exit.
your revenues looking like at that point that is going to compel them to pay $30 billion for you?
Yeah, so year 5 revenue is about $420 million, and scaling up from about 30 on through. I pulled that slide, but.
Pretty high multiple of revenue for a launch company.
Congrats on the progress, 6 people, very lean team early on, so kudos to you guys. I'm curious, can you talk about from time of founding to now, what closed-won contracts you've had across the various segments? Like, have you sold hydrogen tanks? Has there been a customer that's paid for an initial launch demo or a microgravity as service?
Yeah, so we are a NASA-ready provider, so we have access basically to $25 million of launch. We just recently lost Maston Aerospace as a competitor, and we've actually picked up some of their work. Probably the most rewarding thing is we've done cancer research. We've done about 60 different experiments for Mayo Clinic, all those funded through NASA Flight Opportunities, as well as several other payloads, mostly for TRL advancement for clients on those suborbital reusable flights where we've flown the rocket, brought the payloads back, and handed those off.
Yeah, could you actually go in a little bit of detail on the microgravity as a service? Because I think, pharmaceutical industry, academic researchers are really interested in that, but there are different approaches to doing it, right? Strapping it to a satellite that's going to be in orbit for a few days, International Space Station. What does your approach look like?
So I'll refer to one of my mentors, Vice President of Leidos. I used to work for her, and she said, I don't need an orbital capability. She said, I need to run 50 biomedical experiments so we figure out how we're going to do the science, how we're going to do the manufacturing in space, and then I'll tell you, I need your capsule on orbit for 6 weeks, and then when you come off of orbit and you bring that back, I will have something that's worth 100 times value of what I can produce in space, and now the ROI and the business plan closes for me. So show me how to do that every week. In April of this year, we'll take that rocket that we developed for the Air Force and we'll fly it, and then we'll turn around 4 days later and fly it again. And that's the true reusability. That's how I get her flights to do the biomedical research she needs to tell us, okay, when you put your capsule up, this is how long our gestation period is. This is how I bring back product that's worth 100 times more than the cost that I put into it or I would have had to do on Earth.
Cost of launch is obviously a metric that a lot of people in space community investors look at. Might not be an exact comparison for what you guys are doing, obviously, in terms of the economics, but do you have a cost figure in mind in terms of like what a launch costs fully, full payload and all customers on board?
Yeah, full payload, all customers on board is a very fickle number because you say, oh, it's $65 million for a launch for a Falcon 9. However, really the final cost is, closer to double that because you have range fees and everything else that gets kind of added onto that. For suborbital, we're $6,000 a kilogram, and that's a NASA number. So that stays, we can't give anyone a lower price than NASA. And then for our orbital launch, we're at $15,000 a kilogram, and believe that's very achievable based on our history.
So you had 3 endeavors go according to plan successfully. How much revenue did that generate for your company?
Just over $1 million.
3 times, or an aggregate of $1 million for all 3?
Well, aggregate of about $1.5 million because this is our development and our flights primarily for the first 4 launches.
And then how much have you personally, or as a team, or team of 6, we'll call you guys Space SEAL 6, how much have you guys invested as an organization into the company?
Total of $20 million.
Okay, and you're currently raising at what valuation?
$160 million.
Oh, that's right, $160 million. And then do you know what the interest will be on the debt if you're able to secure the debt deal?
Yes, 6.5%.
6.5%, and that's a full blown.
Plus the broker fees, which is another 4%.
And
so
that's
we'll be a little over 10%.
And that's a senior debt position?
Yes and no. It's actually through an international entity because we needed to segregate it for ITAR, KYC, AML, CFIUS.
And as an idea of how to create additional economics, I know a company that likes to put DNA in space. You should talk to that guy.
I think I'll get with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
How's it going, Sharks? How's it going, y'all? My name's Trent Blake. I'm co-founder and captain of Galactive, an in-space services provider bringing satellite servicing capabilities to the commercial market. Our goal is to become the AAA of space. So losing a satellite in orbit is a really big deal. It's a very expensive asset that is absolutely critical to their business operations. So when that happens, satellites are over-designed as a result of a fear of losing that. They're deployed with additional fuel margin, built with layers upon layers of redundancy, just to avoid a failure. So our fix for the risk of losing a satellite in orbit is to make it more expensive. It's a never-ending cycle of risk, and it needs to be ended. So what if I told you that there was a company that could put an end to this cycle? End the over-design of space systems and is supported by the space insurance sector to mitigate that risk. Well, Galactive does just that. We are in the business of selling redundancy as a service. So to do this, we're deploying a fleet of servicing spacecraft that can rapidly respond when an urgent need arises. So when your satellite fails 3 years ahead of schedule, and you're kind of SOL, for lack of better words, then we can be rapidly dispatched, keep that baby rolling, and keep it making money for you. That's a big deal for the operators. That urgent response is saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. And that's why the insurance sector is so interested in us. So to do this, we're deploying the workhorse of our offerings. We're designing a very versatile spacecraft with high-thrust propulsion and the capability of being refueled in orbit. It utilizes a robotic system that's been flight-proven by NASA to capture a satellite and then attach to it, provide it station keeping and even more complex orbital maneuvers. We're giving satellites new lives, new missions, and new opportunities. So to talk about the scale of this opportunity, it's easiest to look at the core driver of any servicing business. The value of potential clients' assets. So there's roughly 500 satellites currently in orbit in GEO right now, and that represents about $60 billion worth of metal in the sky. Roughly half of these are insured on the open market, where just a 10% improvement to replacement asset values represents an over $2 billion immediately addressable market. So you might ask, how do we make money doing this? Well, Galactive collects an annual retainer fee from the operator to include our servicer within existing mission plans during the underwriting process. This allows them to lower the premiums offered to them by their insurers, and then our individual servicing operations are charged on a per-mission basis as needed. Our approach is unique because this allows us to focus on capturing the market through our retainer program, and we expect to have around 50% of the market of our target market included within this program by 2030. And then we target around $200 million of annual revenues by that same year, and profitable operations will be achieved in 2027. So we have both emerging and established competition on our path to achieve our goals. We're currently the only servicing provider that incorporates rapid response capabilities within their models, and then is also directly aligned with the exact needs of the mission underwriters. For these reasons, we're confident that Galactive will outperform all of our peers on our market entry, and our missions are designed to only improve with scale. So with two experienced business operators from parallel industries and a talented aerospace systems engineer at the helm, we're uniquely qualified to tackle this massive problem. Noah and I, my co-founder, we worked together and co-founded the rocketry team at SMU together. And he went on to become a very accomplished systems engineer who's released hardware to Orbit, and then I went on to take over a large franchise dealer group in the Midwest. Our business model functions in a similar manner to the fleet programs that I designed in the car business. And then our engineering processes blend principles from both automotive and aerospace engineering to unlock rapid development schedules. We've accomplished quite a bit with a skeleton crew and really a bootstrap budget. And we're continuing that progress with the support of a Phase 1 award from the US Space Force to optimize our systems, and have been able to expand our crew to include our first embedded systems engineer, and have plans to expand a little bit more soon. So reason I'm up here today is because we just opened a round. It's a $500,000 small seed round to complete some of our system designs, quantify the risk of our systems, and that way we can begin closing contracts with customers with verified numbers. We'll be immediately opening a $2 million round right afterwards to go into initial prototyping and testing. And also, if anyone's interested in the later rounds, the person who leads that gets to cut off this obnoxious mullet. So I'm very excited for any opportunities down the line. So thank you all for your time, and excited to hear from you.
Thanks, Trey. Really interesting presentation there. On-orbit servicing is something we're pretty familiar with, and I think 3 of the companies you mentioned in your presentation we've supported. They've all raised significant sums of money, particularly Astroscale. D-Orbit is one you didn't mention as well. Really interested to understand where the technology is and what differentiates it, because VCs don't often look at fast followers in space.
Sure. No, and there's a big difference between us and Astroscale specifically is our focus on GEO. We focus on a very specific customer needs. They're also in GEO, but we see them more as optimized for debris mitigation. We are not a debris mitigation company. We can do some of those services, but we're very hyper-focused on our vehicle that provides the service. And right now we're at around a TRL 3, maybe going into 4 very soon. So basically we're at the tail end of the design and can go into prototyping and verifying our designs in the next phase, right after Phase 1 of our contract is completed, actually.
So Astroscale are already in space, and
Yes.
they're already looking to capture satellites.
Yes.
That is quite a lot of ground you've got to make up. What is it that is compelling to investors to want to invest in what is going to be a very capitally intensive opportunity?
Sure, and it's really the business model in our approach. Astroscale has had semi-successful launches in orbit and performance, and they're leading away in creating this market. But ultimately, there's a lot more room. We're very niche focused, and they are not as well aligned with the insurance sector as we are.
I didn't get a sense of the technology. Can you outline what the heritage to the technology is?
Sure.
What is your background? I didn't get a sense of the team and their capabilities
Sure.
in this highly specialized area.
Sure. Could you repeat the first question, and then I can go into
I want to know the
myself?
heritage to the
Sure.
technology and where it is today.
Oh, sure. And so we're building our vehicle with primarily commercial off-the-shelf components. So that's allowing us to develop a vehicle that does not require flight-proving individual components and only having to flight-prove the integrated system. And that makes it a lot more aggressive. It's a little bit risky on terms of the competitive advantage in people being able to copy us, but that's also where our IP development is a focus down the line, and we can use our test platform, use our vehicle as a test platform for our own systems that will even further optimize our systems. And my background's in the automotive industry, started in automotive engineering, ended up having to go with, my family called and asked for help, and then I ended up taking over a rather large car dealership, and then multiple of them. So I ran around a 9-figure annual revenue business with 200 plus employees. So I'm a business operator, engineer by background, but I'm a business person. I'm not the most talented engineer in the room. That's also why I have one of the most talented engineers in the room to support me.
So you're raising $500,000 in this current round as a save, and then can you remind me of the number that you said that if things go according to plan, the next round, how much you're wanting to raise?
So it's around a $2 million round. That's a portion of that is used as for our phase 2 application, or for the phase 2 solicitation. But that is really just to begin an integration testing and so that we can start closing those contracts. But the 500K is going to be the first round of contracts. We want to have verified numbers, know exactly what our system cost is so that we can confirm our prices before we lock anything too solid in.
And this is your first round of raising outside capital?
Yes, we did not need to raise yet.
Okay, so you haven't done any friends and family so far?
Haven't needed to.
Okay, cool. And then what would the use of funds be for?
Oh, did I? Uh-oh. Could I get my slides back, please? I think I messed it up. It's not on you. But the use of funds is primarily to cover our current staffing levels as well as salary increases because we need to get paid a little bit to live. And then hiring a couple more engineers just to fill in some of the technical gaps, including a principal spacecraft systems engineer who we do have identified, and then a robotic systems engineer, which we're in a very good locale. I'm local here in Austin. There's very good programs through UT that.
And then to follow on a little bit on what London Rob was asking, is how do you get a competitive edge from, let's just say, a relationship perspective to be able to get deals done? Because a lot of times in the world of business, it's not how much money you have, but who you can connect with.
Yes, and that's where the insurance sector is so important for us, and that's why we were so grateful that they've been supporting us since day one, because they have the most connections throughout the industry. Not everyone touches insurance. There's some professional gamblers that own satellite companies, but they have connections to every aspect from launch to the satellite operators to ancillary operators. So they're a great connection for us.
Can you talk about, ideally, if you raise this funding in the next round and kind of your product development, what are you guys trying to aim for launch? Like
Sure.
on-orbit demonstration is really important for these types of customers.
For sure, and sorry that I didn't mention that. We're aiming for our first launch in 2025. It's a test vehicle, but it's also at the end of its test, we intend to have that be an operational asset so that we can go immediately into revenue generation on our test vehicle.
And how much capital do you need, whether it's from SIBRs or from venture capitalists, to get to launch?
So we're looking at raising around a $40 million series round. That's not the full cost of what it will be at the end, but we look at strategic partnerships as well as some of the government non-dilutive capital to support that, and ultimately we'll have to raise additional capital if we're not successful on those routes.
And out of curiosity, what valuation is this round being raised
This
at?
round is just it's a 7 million average. It's a rolling close, so 5 to 10.
And then final question would be, the market does have some existing players, existing capabilities, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
What is customer feedback that gives you guys the conviction that there's enough product differentiation here?
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys doing differently in GEO that's going to allow you to close those customers versus Starfish or Astroscale or others?
Sure, and there's a lot of companies that are doing very similar things, but on-orbit servicing is just kind of a generalized term now. A lot of those companies are not designed to keep a satellite operational after it fails, but the ones that are, they're very focused on their mission and creating a very efficient spacecraft. We're focused on the needs. Our business was built around by customers, talking to customers and our insurance partners and listening to what are they going to expect in order to support the adoption of on-orbit servicing. And our design focused on the redundancy, serving as backup redundancy, or third-party redundancy as we like to call it, would be our biggest competitive advantage, and that's where we can see ourselves being very successful.
Thanks, Trey.
Awesome. Awesome.
Test, test. 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. Did you know that your way of life depends on the nearly 5,000 satellites orbiting around the Earth right now? Everything from finance, telecoms, telephones, how you get home and navigating, all of these things rely on these satellites. And those satellites are vulnerable. As Russia's shown this year, GPS can be denied. And GPS is the backbone currently to each of these satellites and all of the industries that rely on them. My name is Camille Lance. I am the COO of Rhea Space Activity. My background's in physics. I studied dark matter phenomenology, which is a lot of stuff in the universe that we don't know much about. So I did research in Italy and Germany, and I ended up at the University of Michigan before I realized we're not going to find dark matter anytime soon. So I moved to Washington, D.C. I started working with Rhea Space Activity, and we're working on a really hard problem. But first, allow me to tell you how we got here. A couple of years ago, we were funded from the Space Force to figure out what is lunospatial intelligence, define the newest intelligence discipline. And in doing so, we identified trajectories to enable you to gather information in cislunar space, where cislunar is just that area between the Earth and the Moon. So while doing so, one of the barriers to entry was navigating a satellite in this region. So we developed a module enabling satellites to both navigate in a region where it's not currently commercially feasible, and we identified more opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, telecoms, telephones, satellite communications, all of these things, again, rely on GPS, and that can be denied. So each of these industries would benefit by each of these satellites being added onto a module which enables a resilient, redundant navigation capability. So how are we doing this, and what is actually happening? It's a box about the size of a loaf of bread that gets put onto every satellite and enables that satellite with redundant navigation technology. And what is that technology? Well, suppose you're a Polynesian out in the middle of the ocean, and you're looking up at the stars to identify where you're at. That's effectively what this box is enabling. NASA originally developed the technology. We've commercialized it. The software that's enabling this capability has flown on 18 deep space missions. We are commercializing it and bringing it to new markets. So what are the markets? Suppose now that you're a person that's got a satellite and you need to navigate that satellite. What is your option space? Well, in the bottom right, we see things with lots of flight heritage that are up there, but they're very vulnerable. Navstar, GPS, GLONASS, all of these things can be denied. And if you go into the resilient side of things, you have us and our technology, which is again flown and should be enabling all of these things to have redundant navigation capability. But you also see another thing up there, Deep Space Network. Deep Space Network is a prohibitively expensive solution for doing navigation outside of the geobelt, which is where we started with this question, but it's not really applicable to the satellites that are going around Earth. The unique selling proposition that we have, this is the easy part. Did I mention that it's flown on 18 deep space missions already? So all we have to do is put it in a box and sell the box to you and enable your satellite to have redundant navigation. It's the easy part. And the other easy thing here is the people that develop the code to make it happen are on our team. So every time we try to enter a new market space, we can easily develop that technology, that software, and make it look at other celestial objects to navigate from. Traction currently. We were started in 2018. To date, we have commercial contracts and ongoing government contracts with Space Force and the United States Air Force. Total revenue since 2018 is $3.3 million. We've always been in the black. And our projected revenue for next year alone is $10 million. What is our market size? So it's really large, as I started this off with. There's a lot of satellites going around Earth. We can go on every single one of those into the future. That's that $280 billion. But the addressable market that we're going after is Five Eyes satellites: the United States, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the UK. So we'd like to do that, but first we're going to go with our obtainable market, which is $8.8 billion and growing. That's where we're starting off. Our business model is simple. We've got a unit price of this module. The market has already purchased it at this price, and they're what set the price. $1.7 million for the box, cost about $250,000 to make, and we've got the nice curve. The curve is indicative of us not just being on satellites, but we can also enable airplanes to navigate as well if GPS is denied. Milestones. So I mentioned we were founded in 2018. Our founder has over a decade of intelligence experience in the United States intelligence community. He brings it to bear with our ongoing efforts. Our first dollar bill on the left with the Space Force contract, that was our seed round. We're on this first, or the middle dollar bill, the Series A. And in the future, we're looking at mergers and acquisitions to make us resilient to supply chain issues. In addition to, could I get water, anybody? Carolina, thank you. In addition to mergers and acquisitions and an additional series round moving forward, thank you. Our team, I've already mentioned the intelligence community background and the fact that we've got the people that wrote the code on the team. And in addition to them, these two wonderful faces in the front audience, we've got Dave, and Sam's around here somewhere. We're a growing team also, so this funding will help us grow and continue to develop these modules. So wrapping up the summary here, we're developing resilient navigation for critical infrastructure, a piece of a backbone of satellites enabling your way of life. We've got experience in the IC, DoD, Department of Defense and Intelligence community, experience in the deep space industries, and we've also got traction, commercial and government. We're asking for $5 million to unlock additional government funding, and we are open to questions now.
Thanks,
being
Cameo.
myself and
That's
me.
a fun presentation, so thank you for that. You mentioned a figure there of 8.8 billion for your addressable market in PNT satellites. Is that the value of current satellites, or is that your market value?
That is actually a projection into 2031 of what the PNT SOM would be for us. So
that's the value to you selling into that sector?
That is the sector's value, not the value to us.
Yeah.
The industry
so what is
is
the
that
value
large.
to you?
To us. Oof.
Which would be your addressable market?
Well, I would have to do back of the envelope calculations in my head that I am not sophisticated to do on stage.
You're a physicist. You can do it.
I studied topology, which is like the folding of space-time, not necessarily arithmetic. I apologize, but I can get back to you with that answer.
Okay, well, we'll leave it in that dark matter area then. So in terms of, what is the core market that you're going to be addressing? And in terms of the cost per unit, what is that as a proportion of the overall satellite cost?
So our initial addressable market is satellites, kind of like Uber did with Uber Black. They went for the exquisite route. We're going exquisite initially with doing things like deep space. So in deep space, the prohibitively expensive aspects come with trying to use the deep space network. So breaking into that market initially, we've got some contracts ongoing with commercial companies for being the navigation solution for them as they're going out to the moon.
Yeah. So how much is it going to cost me as a proportion of my overall satellite cost?
Yes, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is how much would it cost if you didn't? So the proportion of that, 1%-ish of the total satellite cost would be to this. And if you didn't, you'd have to use something like Deep Space Network. $700,000 every 2 weeks. 1 week, $700,000. The second 2 weeks, $1.4 million. And you've almost gotten to the point where you could just buy the thing and go for more than 4 weeks. That's second set of 2 weeks, and you've already paid for the cost of the module.
Nice evasion.
So being nascent to the space ecosystem, if I caught what you were saying at the beginning of your presentation, you guys figure out a way to go where no man has gone before?
You got it.
Just want to make sure I got that. Okay, cool. So you're raising $5 million, right? And you're projected to do $10 million. So one, how much have you guys put into the company as a team organization?
Blood, sweat, and
Capital-wise?
tears, about 4.5 years.
Okay, but no capital your own? So
No.
how have you guys financed the organization?
In the black, doing projects associated with this for the last 4 years, working with the Department of Defense, Air Force, and Space Force contracts.
And if the technology is so amazing, which it sounds to be,
It
right? And NASA was the one who basically formulated it.
Mm-hmm.
How did you acquire the commercial rights? Are they licensed to the technology, or did NASA abandon the project and you guys bought it on a foreclosure basis?
So this is really awesome because it gives us an opportunity to do something that's really hard for large government agencies. NASA develops things, DoD with Space Force now wants to use them, but they're really bad at talking to each other. So things happen like in this case, NASA has a technology and wants it to be commercialized so that it can be used and not just sitting on a shelf. So it was commercialized and now we have exclusive license to it.
So you guys you own the IP then?
Yes, we have the exclusive license to it.
And then if you're able to generate, I think it was $1.45 million per sale, why do you need $5 million and not able to just cash flow through
Yeah,
the
we
growth
don't
of the
need the
company?
$5 million for operation. We need it to unlock. So I mentioned we have some Space Force contracts. So the Space Force is asking us to, one of these slides has something on it that's really cool. I can reference it later. In any case, we've identified some use cases for this, and they would like for us to develop it for their needs. In any case, they have a program called the Small Business Innovation Research Fund, and the government is attempting to rejuvenate young companies, small companies, and giving them monies. But they have to bridge a gap between the few $100,000 to $1 million and the operational multi-$100 million capabilities. In order to do that, they started programs, tactical finance, strategic finance. And the requirement to get these monies is to show the government that there's a market for it. So we need this money not because we need it, but because the government is requiring us to have it so that we can continue on with our projects.
It's almost like unlocking opportunity.
Exactly.
Okay,
so
great.
you would be helping us unlock an opportunity.
Awesome. So I just wanted to say it's very obvious this is your first presentation ever, so maybe.
I need a little bit of water there. Thanks, Pat.
Great presentation. Can you describe a little bit, I was actually a little unclear in terms of what satellite constellations you're focused on. Is this a LEO facing opportunity for redundancy? Is this for cislunar? Is this just for commercial and government opportunities in deep space? Like, where do you focus on?
If I could do a deep voice and cover the microphone, I would do that and say, all of them. The beautiful thing about this is you saw it's about the size of a loaf of bread. That's something which can be integrated even on a CubeSat because GPS denial is real for satellites in LEO, GEO, and the lack of a cost-affordable navigation solution in cislunar space and beyond, because we've got a room of dreamers, is something that is prohibitively expensive. So it goes to all of these markets.
And is there a certain satellite size that this becomes prohibitive at, right? Like Swarm and some, satellite companies are the size of a hockey puck or something really small. So obviously your loaf of bread is pretty big compared to that. Like, is there a payload size or a satellite bus size configuration that's kind of the minimum or maximum you look to partner with?
So I'm going to interpret that as like, what is the restricting factor here? And that is we use optical navigation. And in order to do optical navigation, you have to take pictures. So you take a picture, identify some things, triangulate, et cetera. So you have to have a camera. So technology has been such that before that I can have an entire computer in my pocket. So I trust that in the future we can be on even hockey puck sizes. But even going the other way, because you bring up a really cool point, is sure, small is a swap constraint, size, weight, and power constraint. But on the other side of things, can we navigate something like the deep space gateway around the moon? And the answer to that one is also yes.
What do you think the cislunar opportunity is here? Like as that ecosystem is starting to develop?
Starting to is a big word, and it is ripe with opportunity. We are talking to all the major players that are working on moving in that space.
And what's the valuation?
Our valuation, got a room full of nerds, is 42. Thank you, gentlemen. 42 million.
Okay. So what sort of exits can we expect as investors?
What kind of exits? Exit strategies include being purchased or going public. That's something that we'd like to have the conversation with our investors to strategically identify routes for them to maximize and us to maximize that exit.
And how much are you going to exit for?
The curve only goes up. Hopefully a lot. Sir, I don't have a good answer for you there. I don't have a number. Trillions of dollars if it's up to me.
I hope so. Cameo?
Last question is with the $5 million, how much funds does that unlock from the government?
That immediately unlocks 1.7. We're working on a contract now for that. On another contract that we're working on, it's up to $15 million. So in total, $16.7 million.
Great, Cameo. Thank you very much.
Gladly. Thank you, gentlemen.